Okay, I launched Victron Connect. Now I'm going to plug in the MK-3 and do a refresh. There you go. VE bus device, it will identify it once it finish. There, multi-plus. The way I have this connected with the USB cable, it's going to affect the communication, my multi-plus, with the rest of the device. And for example, it will probably come up with errors such as low battery. Unfortunately, that's something you just ignore. Because you're basically interrupting a system here. Okay, let's go to multi-plus. Okay, this is the standard AC input line 1, line 2, and plus what the battery is. And it's telling me 14 amps is the fixed. Yeah, okay. There you go. Let's go now to our settings. Enable settings is password protected. Feature provided in this menu are powerful tools intended for use by Victron trained engineers, installers, and dealers. Its usage must not be attempted by system owner and users. Configuring our inverter chargers such as multis and quadros require both training and experience. Victron offers no direct support for untrained individuals carrying out configuration. Interesting. With VRM on Windows there, using the VeConfigure 3, I don't get that type of warning. But anyways, we are unofficial engineers. Let's go. And the password is 3 Z's or 3 Z's, depending where you're from, how you pronounce it. Z, Z, Z. Okay. General. If you looked at my previous video, I kind of went over this a little bit because I'm running off a 50 amp circuit plug. I've set my AC current limit to 40 amps, and I've also gave it the ability to overrule the multi-plus, where it could have been set, for example, at 30 amps. And dynamic current limit is great when you have, as it says, prevents AC voltage drop in the event of a sudden load increase. Of course, I want to monitor my battery. Right now, I got 506 amps hooked up. State of charge and charge efficiency, that can vary with each battery. And when you're running multiple batteries, they all may have different figures. So let's do a compromise, either go to the lowest one or in the middle. It just depends on the batteries that you're using. Okay, let's go general. Let's go back to grid. Accept wide input. I turn it off. I prefer to have nice sine wave. For my AC UPS function, yes, in case my generator fails or I lose power, run out of gas or diesel, depending on what you're using, it will switch over and you without even knowing it, and other than perhaps a notification if you have set it up that way. For AC low voltage and AC high voltage, I use the 10% figure. That would probably be the highest percentage you won't want to go. So in my case, it's 120 volts. There's that error. You just have to ignore it. So 120 volts plus 10% for the high voltage cutoff, minus 10% for the low voltage cutoff. and we're not connected to the grid, so we could ignore that, nor is my system really set up for it. Okay, let's go to inverter. Ground relay, almost in all cases you should have it on. Apparently once you connect to AC or shore power, it will switch off, and when you disconnect it will switch on the ground relay. Obviously your AC should provide the ground, and we don't want to create a ground loop, I guess. I also use the 10% for, I meant to say is, if you really want better low voltage and high voltage cutoff, you can use the 5%. Now this one here, it's the DC, low shutdown. We're talking volts DC. I like to set it at 10.8. Some batteries will say 10.4, some will say 10. It can vary. And you need to set your DC input low restart and your DC input low pre-alarm. If you set it too low, you will not get that alarm because the system will shut down. So I set it at 12.40. And I also use the state of charge. The low state of charge, I have it set 10%. And let me just click on that. And the restart will be at 20%. So once the charger brings it up to 20%, it will charge again. Okay. I don't use AES. I guess the advantage of it is if your multiplus is using more energy than you like, and it's basically sitting around most of the day idle, probably could use that setting. But then you'll be dealing with a modified sine wave. There'll be a hesitation, 1 second or less, depending on which option you take. And of course power assist, which is essential. For example, if I fire up my air conditioning and I'm only using a 15 amp generator, it'll take care of that, no problem. Okay, cancel on that. We talked about that, so let's go to charger. I didn't talk about this one yet. Of course I want my multiplus to act like a charger. Normally I have it at 90 amps. However, in the past, I've been able to use the Victron Connect to reduce that to 30 amps or 40 amps. But I noticed on my last update, as I mentioned before, it's not working. So I'll have to look into it still. The last time that happened, Victron had to do a bug fix. Okay, absorption voltage. I have batteries that require 14.6. Actually, I have 3 batteries that require 14.6. That's stipulated by the manufacturer. The other 2, they like 14.4, and I have one that likes a little even less than that, and they claim it's 100% charge, which I cannot agree. Float voltage 13.8. I just leave it at that. It works. Absorption intervals, that changes. It just depends on, if I'm depending a lot on sun power, solar power, I probably would have longer absorption periods, depending what the charge levels are. That's something you have to kind of play with, I guess. Charge curve. I've been using adaptive. Fix. Charge curve will have a fixed absorption time. Adaptive. The charge current derives the absorption time from the bulk time. The maximum absorption time of these charges, or I should say of this charge curves, is determined by the absorption time setting. And then there's a third option, adaptive plus battery safe. Charge curve has a special regulation in the absorption phase. The absorption phase will start when the voltage reaches 14.4 for a 12-volt battery, regardless of the specified absorption voltage. During the absorption phase, the voltage will increase with a fixed ramp until the voltage reaches the absorption voltage or until the calculated absorption time is over. In the latter case, the absorption phase will end before the absorption voltage is reached. Well, I don't think I need that one, so I just left it at adaptive. Either fixed or adaptive should work. And battery safe. Let's see what happens if I turn that on. Okay. Lithium battery. I'm using lithium batteries. I'm not in storage mode. I don't use equalization. This is not a lead acid battery. Weak AC input. Now, I believe this would be in a scenario where your generator has issues with producing a 60 hertz waveform. I have a Honda generator, so it's not a problem. So I would not need to use this. Okay, stop excessive bulk. Okay, this is hard to decide. When the bulk phase lasts more than 10 hours, this can be an indication that a battery cell is damaged. The absorption voltage minus or the 14.4, where a battery safe mode is used, will never be reached in that case, and the other cells will be overcharged, resulting in the production of an explosive gas. I would think this is referring to lead. Probably lithium ion, perhaps, but the Lifebuoy, I'm not sure. I have to check that out. Therefore, the charger is disabled if the bulk phase lasts more than 10 hours. This setting can be disabled because it does not always indicate a problem when the bulk phase lasts very long. The charge current can be very low due to limited AC input current or the AC loads. Also, this DC load can steal away part of the charge current. In that case, the bulk phase will need more time to complete, and this setting must be disabled. Note, there is no safety check against overcharging when this setting is disabled. With 90 volts DC, I should be able to bring up my batteries up to full. So you know something? I decided I'm going to leave it on. When there is an issue that it takes more than 10 hours to bulk charge my batteries, I would look into a setting somewhere to eliminate that. Okay, disable VSense, diagnostic purposes. Okay, let's go to charger, AC input control. Okay, load condition. I kind of turned that on to see what it does. When my load is higher than, let's say, 100 watts, then it will come back on. And delayed, no delay. When the load drops to 30 watts, then it will disconnect from the AC. So that could be useful. You can also set battery condition. Connect when the state of charge drops below 80%. Let's say you have a pretty good solar supply. If you do, then you may want to drop it down to 50% if it will charge your batteries during the day when you have a lot of solar. And at nighttime, you can set it up, turn on a heater or some other heavy device, and it will use the battery power. And AC will only cut in when your state of charge drops to whatever you set, if it's 50% or 40%. If you have reliable offshore power, you can say 30%. And also connect when the battery voltage drops below 10.7. So I guess this is great for both lead and lithium. So if you have lead, the voltage is more accurate for lead, while state of charge is probably better for lithium. I use both. If for some, not as high, it's more likely my state of charge will drop before my voltage will drop, but it's just a backup, I guess. So that's an option. It kind of reminds me a little bit of AES, except in that particular case it has to do with the sine wave, reducing consumption of your multiplus. So I could see that using this at perhaps once I have my solar projects fully completed on the RV. I could say, don't use my generator until state of charge drops down to a certain percentage. Okay, there you go. And let's advance. Prioritize other energy sources. When you check this option, the charger switches to float and starts charging with the dedicated voltage, which can be specified below this checkbox. Okay, set by default 13. This option is designed for mobile systems such as boats and motorhomes that, besides an inverter charger, also have solar installed. When enabled, the inverter charger will charge the battery only up to the specified voltage, to leave the rest of the charging for the installed solar or other installed renewable energy sources such as a wind generator. This will last until the repeated absorption interval is elapsed. From then on, the charger will behave normally. In the controls on the user interface for day-to-day use, that is, Victron, GX device, VRM portal, there is an option to override this behavior for moments where a full charge from shore power is needed. Warning: this option is not to be used for ESS and or off-grid systems. Okay. Okay, it's another way of getting your charger not to use offshore power to charge up your batteries when you have a lot of sun. So, yeah, I don't think you need both of them on, but it's interesting. I do have options. I could see some use of it for myself once my solar system is fully finished. But until then, and I'm manually using a generator, so none of this would be applicable for me. So this is how it looks for the MK-3 USB-C. You probably set this up once and you may never have to do it again unless you did a firmware update and everything gets reset, which is what happens often. Or a bug is introduced, which I believe is again repeated, where the DCVV, I think it is called, I forget the section now. Let me check here for you. Look at my iPad. DVCT, okay, yeah, that's what I think that's what I said. Okay, I got that set for 40 amps. Even though my multiplus is set for 90 amps, it should override it, but it doesn't. It has in the past, and then they fixed it, and then this last firmware doesn't work. I'll have to go back to Victron and forum and bring that up again. So that's it. It's a review. hopefully it gives you an idea if it's something that you think is worth having for yourself. I could have done without this, but I was curious. And there are times where I've been asked to check settings on other people's units, so this would be probably much easier than having to bring a Windows laptop and connecting that way, especially if, as most people I deal with, have Macs. So it's something you have to decide if you have a need for it. Please subscribe. Please give a thumbs up. Otherwise, YouTube makes me invisible. Thanks again.